Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition. We are live. It is the ultimate Cleveland Guardian show. Along with Zach Meisel, I'm Adam the Bull. We have 13 days to go in the regular season, Zach, and the Guardians are on the doorstep of the playoffs. What will you be doing to celebrate when they clinch a playoff spot?
Probably wearing some sort of poncho and trying to avoid having too much champagne sprayed on me while I gather quotes and take in the scene.
Do you have the goggles ready?
I actually have never worn the goggles or poncho during any of these before.
I think you should.
You're almost like it's like playing laser tag. Like you're looking around the room like, all right, is anyone trying to get me when I, in my blind spot or something? And
yeah,
I do remember I was covering the Giants Reds postseason series in like 2012, and I didn't know those teams.
Yeah.
And Angel Pagan of the Giants, never talked to this guy in my life, came up from behind and just dumped an entire bottle of champagne on my head. And I was actually driving back to Cleveland that night from Cincinnati, didn't have a change of clothes or anything. I'm like, this is good. Got to drive 4 hours. And if I get pulled over, they're going to smell all this alcohol. And I didn't even know
the cop's going to believe that you were in the locker room for the Reds, or the Giants.
So you never know where it might come from. So you head on a swivel.
That's right. These are the stories you don't get anywhere else. Right here on the ultimate Cleveland Guardian show. So, Zach, if my math is correct, and I think it is, the Guardians' magic number to clinch a playoff spot is 2, and to clinch the division is 7. That includes tiebreakers, correct?
I think the playoff one is tricky because you've got, obviously, the Twins are clinging onto that last playoff spot.
Yeah.
The Tigers and the Mariners are right behind them.
Yeah.
And so there's tiebreaker scenarios, 3-team tie scenarios. That's confusing. The earliest they can clinch a playoff spot is tomorrow, Wednesday.
Right.
And it seems like
they can't clinch it. You said so. Technically, it's 3, not 2. To avoid any tiebreaker.
The way I heard it explained, relayed from people at MLB, was that technically their magic number could be 0, but yet they still can't clinch because you don't know what the tiebreaker would be. I don't know.
So we'll call it 3 just to be safe.
Somehow Houston is involved in this because the Mariners still aren't out of the division race in the West. Okay. So technically Houston could wind up as a wild card, and they don't yet have the tiebreaker with Houston. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's weird. I know like MLB's official declaration here is Wednesday's the earliest they could clinch, but also it feels like that's probably the day, right? Like they would have to win, they could win 1 of 2, and then whichever team is first on the outside, looking in, Seattle, Detroit could lose 1 or 2, and that's that.
Bigger fish to fry with the division, which is 7. I mean, at this point, it would be a miracle. Miracle, I don't like that word, but it would be a huge shocker if the Guardians did not win the division.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can almost, like with another win or 2, you can start letting yourself think about what you're going to do during that first round bye.
Right.
And then you're starting to think, can they get the 1 seed?
Right. They're a half game behind the Yankees. The Yankees have the tiebreaker.
Yeah. And the Yankees and Orioles are going to play each other, next week, I think?
Right.
Or is it later this week?
Let's see. It is, I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no?
Okay.
Hold on. I'll double check that. No, I'm sorry. It's next week. They're playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. So, that's gonna be really interesting too. Because there's such, the Orioles are 3 games back right now. Both teams are on the West Coast, but that's such a big difference. Those 2 teams fighting for the number 1 overall seed, where you get a first round bye, you get home field advantage, versus being the 4 seed, and you're playing a wild card series, a best of 3. It's essentially a coin flip, and even if you win that, You don't have your pitching set up the way you want going into the division series.
Right.
I mean, there are huge advantages to getting that first round bye. So
Right.
it'll be interesting to see how that series shakes out while the Guardians are playing the Reds and having a couple off
Right.
days. And
And
there's
I
an advantage.
wonder, Zach, like, obviously winning the division, they're going for that. You want to win the division. You want to get the bye. Do you go all out for the bye? Do you go all out for the 1 seed? Like, if it's the last day of the season and you're tied with the Yankees, so you have to finish a game ahead. Like, are you going all out that day to try to be that 1 seed?
You are, because you've already got a first round bye sewn up. So you're going to have 3 days off, 4
That's
days
true.
off,
Good
whatever
point.
it is.
Good point.
The big thing is they've created some distance between themselves and the Astros. They're 5.5 up on Houston, and they play them 3 times at the end of the season. So obviously you don't want that series to matter. So you want to keep that distance because that's the team chasing you for that first round bye. So, win a few more games and you have that wrapped up, and then you can start being strategic and mapping things out and figuring out who do we want to get more of a look at, who do we want to give Clase a little bit of a breather, try somebody else in the 8th inning at some point, things like that.
One other thing we got to talk about, this is a huge story. The White Sox have won 3 in a row. They are trying hard not to get that record. They have 11 games left. They have to win.
They need to go 7-4 to avoid it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they will. But anyway, the Guardians right now 87-60. What's their season high over 500? 25.
Mm-hmm.
So as bad as they slumped there for a while, they have a reasonable chance to end the season with their best winning percentage they've had all year. Certainly at some point in the next 2 weeks, that there's a decent chance that'll happen now that they've won 3 in a row. They've got 11 games left. I think they could win, 94. I don't think that's unreasonable.
No, I mean, nobody has more wins in the American League.
Yep.
And the only teams in the National League that do are Philly and LA. So
are we going to have no 100-game winners this year?
Yeah.
Possibly.
And even, what'll be the best record? Philly's 90-60. They're the only team with a 600 winning percentage.
Yeah, that's the Phillies 90-60. So they're going to have to win 10 of 12 to win 100. I doubt that happens.
Yeah, you might only have 2 teams with 95 wins.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
The Dodgers, you got the Phillies with 90, the Dodgers with 89, the Brewers, the Yankees, and the Guardians with 87. It's close up there. And I guess in some way, if you want to get really greedy and cocky and confident, you want to look at the Brewers record and maybe even the Dodgers, because if you played them in the World Series for home field advantage.
Yeah, it's also shows why that first round bye is so critical, because the Royals could absolutely, you want to face the Royals in a best of 3 and go against Reagans and Lugo and Singer? No. You want to face the Orioles in a best of 3, Corbin Burns? No. It's a wide open year. I think it's a year where you're going to see some really good series because a lot of these teams are pretty evenly matched. So it's important to have that first round bye to avoid having to play an extra series.
I agree. I don't think there's a clear favorite at all. Kudos to the Tigers, man. What a run they've been on. They're pitching, Zach, with all these. They're putting openers in front of Herder. They're putting openers in front of Madden. And then those guys are coming in the second inning, and they've been pitching great. Obviously, we know Skubal's probably going to win the Cy the way he's pitched. But man, they've done a really nice job, that team. This division's in good shape. All these teams are young. Minnesota, not quite as young as the others, but like Kansas City, Detroit, and Cleveland are all, for the most part, led by young players.
Do you think the Twins hang on?
I don't. I think the Tigers are going to catch them.
Wow.
I'm kind of rooting for the Tigers. I know some people don't like the Tigers. I don't know. I find them, I like the story. I think it's cool that and I hate that the Twins are the team in the division I dislike the most. So
That's a pretty big collapse.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were thinking, oh, boy, the Twins are going to take over this division.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll pat myself on the back because when the Guardians salvaged that final game where they came back against the Royals, I said, we're going to look back at this as the turning point of the season. And it was. I really think it was. Not that they have played perfect since then, but overall since then, they've played much better. Right? They've gone, since that win, including that game, they've gone, 5-1, 5-2, 6-4, 12-6 since including that game when they had been playing middling baseball for a while.
And again, they took away the Royals' best chance to grab hold of the division.
Right.
So I think that was huge. It's fun. You've got the AL Central right now. You got Guardians, Twins going on, Royals, Tigers going on, and all the results sort of have multiple implications.
Oh, yeah.
If you're the Guardians, you're like, okay, well, if the Royals lose, that inches them closer to a division title. But if the Tigers lose, they could sew up a playoff spot quicker. I don't know that really matters, but it's interesting. I never would have guessed that you'd have 4 teams playing 2 series in mid-September with a lot of things on the line.
From not that we care about stuff like this, but from a Major League Baseball perspective, they're getting almost everything they want. I mean, they're getting obviously both New York teams in the playoffs, although the Mets certainly are not a lock. They're getting, but there's parity, so it feels like anybody could win.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the Dodgers in the playoffs, which the only thing, from a baseball perspective market is you don't have the Cubs in the playoffs. But baseball's got to be thrilled overall. Getting both New York teams, the Dodgers, and then parity is a perfect combo from their perspective. I would think.
I mean, if we take a step back, like it should be a great October.
Oh, unbelievable!
I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think the best teams are getting in. And you're right. There's not like that one. I mean, maybe the Dodgers just because of the brand names, the household names they have, but there's not some like juggernaut who you gotta slay the dragon here.
The Dodgers, their pitching staff is in shambles.
Mm-hmm.
Glasnow's going to miss the rest of the year, and he's their best pitcher. So
Yamamoto came back, but like he's going to have to get extra rest between starts, even in the playoffs. They were talking about Ohtani maybe chipping in a little bit.
Yeah. Here's the latest odds, by the way, to win the World Series. So you got the Dodgers are basically 3-1, the Yankees 5-1, the Phillies 5-1, the Orioles 6.5-1, the Astros 8-1. So those teams are all real close. Then there's a little bit of a drop, and the Padres, Braves, Brewers, Guardians are all 14-1, and the Diamondbacks and Royals are 17-1. But like, that's not crazy odds. I mean, it's pretty bunched. So the Dodgers are the favorite, but not an overwhelming.
It's interesting to me that they're ahead of the Phillies like that. I think the Phillies are a more well-rounded team. I also think the American League setup is interesting. I know I'm not legally not allowed to give baseball gambling advice here, but these aren't the Astros that you're used to.
No, you're right.
I don't know what the Guardians are going to do. They could win the World Series. They could get bounced in the first round.
Definitely.
I don't know.
But I think you could say that about almost any team.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the American League, there shouldn't be this huge disparity.
No.
And I know some of it is, well, people are going to bet on the Yankees. People are going to bet on the Astros'
that's a big
reputation.
Part of it. Yes. Yeah.
But there's a lot of these teams are really close in talent. And more than that, it's the formula to win in October. You may look at the Guardians roster if you're a common fan living in Wyoming and say, well, that doesn't look like a team that's going to win the World Series. But if you study the bullpen and what you can do with the bullpen in the playoffs, that gives them a better shot than you would think.
If you look at bullpen, defense, base running, the Guardians are if you combine those 3 things, and obviously there's other important things, but if you combine those 3 elements, the Guardians are head and shoulders above any other team in those 3 things. Obviously, their weakness is the back end of the lineup and the rotation, But if the top of the lineup is performing, and we'll talk about Steven Kwan in a second, and the rotation is giving you just enough, they just need to be adequate, then there's enough in the bullpen, and maybe with Tristan McKenzie too, I don't know, that they can win that way. I mean, we've seen it happen a number of times.
As a team, their bullpen ERA is 2.65.
Yeah, that's absurd.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Next closest team, Brewers, 3.18. It's more than half a run. And it's, you're going to lean on Clase and Tim Herron and Hunter Gaddis and Cade Smith in the playoffs, but I'm amazed. Boyd gets knocked out in the third inning last night.
Yeah. And nothing.
They don't flinch.
No.
Pedro Avila and Eli Morgan and Eric Sabrowski and Andrew Walters comes in with electric stuff. Like, it doesn't even matter who they're pitching. It's even the back end guys have been so good, or the
I know what you mean.
Front end guys.
Yeah.
That even if they're down, like, they don't get blown out. So it buys the offense time to score some runs and get back in the game.
All right. We talked about all the positives. Let's talk about some things we're concerned about here. Obviously, Boyd, 2 straight shaky starts, gets knocked out early in this one. Cobb's on the IL. We know about Williams being inconsistent. How are you feeling about the rotation at the moment?
Not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea what this looks like in October. Probably still Bybee, Boyd, 1-2. Cobb is hopeful he can come back and make at least one major league outing before the end of the regular season. They would love for him to get a rehab start at AAA. I think next week, but TBD on that.
Yeah.
And it's tough because there's just not enough time to for Gavin Williams to get in a rhythm. I guess Cobb's rehab start would have to come this week because AAA season ends Sunday.
Right.
So I'm guessing they want him to make that start probably over the weekend. I think he's supposed to throw a bullpen in the next couple of days, tomorrow or Thursday, I think. I don't know. You're running out of time. And I guess the one good thing is you're not asking for people to prove you can trust them for 7 innings.
Right.
In the playoffs, if Gavin Williams gives you 4 good innings, take it and run. If Cobb, Boyd, Lively, you need a guy to get through the lineup maybe twice, and that's it. But still, I don't know what that pecking order is. Is Joey Cantillo part of this? Is there any way to use McKenzie? Is he looked really good out of the bullpen twice, multiple innings both times last week. Is that something you would trust with the season on the line? I don't know.
I'd be comfortable with him in the pen. I'm not going to be comfortable with him in the starting rotation. Although I guess if he's only pitching 2 innings or whatever, it's going to be fascinating to see the roster construction once we get to the postseason here. Speaking of which,
well, that's usually the one thing that you don't have to debate. Usually you're building your playoff roster and it's like, all right, who's the 9th reliever?
Right.
Or which bench players do you want? There were times when it was the order of the rotation that they were trying to get creative with, and maybe it backfired, going Trevor Bauer game 1, Corey Kluber game 2.
Right.
Based on when the off days fell. But now it's like, no, who's starting all these games? It's going to be a little more involved.
Let's talk about Steven Kwan for a minute. Obviously, got some back issues. He's, his slump has been, we've talked about it a lot. How concerned are you about him right now?
Yeah, I mean, he was doing some outfield work yesterday. I guess he's got some important check-ins today to see what this winds up being. They're terming it day to day. The main thing for me is it's not even that. It's you still need him time to get back in a groove offensively. It felt like he was starting to maybe figure it out. Hits in 4 straight games, walks in 6 straight games. And so the timing is unfortunate. And I'm sure when you have back tightness, swinging a bat is not going to make that feel good. So they need him back, and they need to have a little runway so that he can get back going offensively.
Kyle Manzardo with the big home run yesterday, Zach, after not playing Saturday or Sunday. I mean, that was huge. The Hammy had a great call of that, by the way. I don't know if you heard it, but
what'd you think of his reaction?
Oh, Manzardo's reaction?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the reaction now. Why is
Did
it
they
not
show
coming?
it on TV? I mean, he slammed his bat. He's yelling at the dugout.
I either didn't notice it or I guess I didn't notice it, or maybe they didn't show it. I can't remember now. They must have shown it. I don't know why I don't remember him doing that.
It's a pretty cool scene. It was electric. You don't see, and we haven't seen that from Manzardo, who's so relaxed. He's like I don't know. It almost seems like a California surfer who's just everything's peachy. But yeah, I mean, he was showing a ton of emotion. Naylor just stopped, raised his arms up, and watched the ball sail into the seats.
And that ball was crushed.
Yeah, and then Manzardo's pumped around the bases. He said he blacked out a little bit. They hug at home plate. And, when you think about it, and, Stephen Vogt's in tears after the game, talking about the moment and what it meant. And you think, it's an interesting snapshot. If you rewind a year ago and the Guardians trade one of Naylor's best friends in Aaron Savali for a hot shot first base prospect.
Yep.
And if you're Josh Naylor, you're thinking, well, what's my future here? They're acquiring this first baseman whose bat they love.
Yeah.
And they're willing to sacrifice maybe some wins last season to do it. What does that mean for me? And we've seen, Naylor obviously is a heartbeat in this lineup and in the clubhouse. And Manzardo's kind of struggled to get his footing this season, but Manzardo hasn't played first base. And, I don't think that's by accident. I think that's their way of saying, Naylor, you're our first baseman. You have nothing to worry about. Just do your job. And for Manzardo, it's been, hey, we just want you up here to hit. Don't worry about playing first base yet. Yeah. Just show us that bat. And it's kind of been a bumpy road for both of them. But you think back a year ago when they made those trades, and the goal was to do that to set yourself up better for the future. They needed hitting, and they could capitalize on Aaron Savali's trade value. So I know a lot of people didn't like the trade at the time. I think you and I felt differently. We understood it.
Mm-hmm.
And last night was maybe the culmination of everything they were building toward, everything they were thinking about last summer. And you finally get this moment. Manzardo, I think, finally feels like he's a big leaguer. He belongs. He can hit major league pitching. And also, it's his first taste of a big moment and a pennant race and all of that. And I think, Vogt was in tears, and he's talking about how much he loves these guys and how much they love each other. And I think everything just kind of hit a crescendo at the right time. And, and that win, and then the Royals lose, and all of a sudden it's like, that's a moment you'll look back on in this journey toward a division title.
No doubt about it. It was an incredible moment. The crowd was going bananas. I'm curious, does this moment, and you look back, as I said, over the weekend, and Manzardo was on the bench both Saturday and Sunday. Now, Saturday, I know they were using him as kind of an opener. Drew Rasmussen's been a starter, but he was hurt for most of the year. But he's a righty, and I know they went to the lefty after that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Tyler Alexander, and then Sunday they started Taj Bradley, who's a righty. I don't understand. I just feel like he should be in the lineup right now every day against righties at Manzardo. You think we will see that more, or you think this is just going to be the way it is?
No, I think you will. The Rays are weird. I know the Bradley one I was confused about too, but that, they pulled Pepio after 3 innings on Thursday. Like I don't know. They lean on their bullpen so much and matchups. And, Manzardo this month, it's a small sample size. It's 39 plate appearances, but a 917 OPS since he's come back from AAA. So he fits. He lengthens that lineup. When you've got Lane Thomas going, Manzardo hitting well, that makes a huge difference. If you can get Quan back rolling in the top spot in the order, the lineup could be formidable enough. It's, there are still holes, there are still question marks, there are still pieces that don't quite fit. But with what you could have right now, like this is as close to optimal as you can get.
Yeah. You need Quan to get it together and the starting rotation to just be adequate for 4 or 5 innings. And if you get that, this team can win it all. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
I mean, it's crazy because we're just assuming, Cade Smith and Gaddis and Herron, like those guys aren't going to give up a run the entire month of October.
Right, yeah.
But as unfair as it is, they are automatic every single time they come in. It's unbelievable. Class A makes the 9th inning look like such a breeze.
I know. And what's amazing is that outside of Class A, these guys don't really have any track records of this. Cade Smith had barely pitched in the majors. Hunter Gaddis, or hadn't pitched in the majors. Hunter Gaddis, didn't look good as a starter last year, on and on and on. And these guys have just been great. It seems like whoever they've called up for the most part has done a great job. So we'll see. All right, I want to talk to you about FanDuel, folks. A lot of cool things going on with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to visit America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Zach, let's get to the questions from the fans here because I think we got a lot of them. A lot of people watching us live today. We appreciate it.
By the way, do you know the last? Because Cade Smith's at 98 strikeouts, which is insane.
Yeah.
Do you know the last Cleveland reliever with at least 100?
Andrew Miller?
In 2016, he did, but most of those were with the Yankees.
Wow, that's true.
You're not going to get it.
No chance. Go ahead.
Paul Shuey in 1999.
That long?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, my God.
And then there were 3 guys in the 70s. Those guys, though, threw a lot more innings.
Yeah.
Jim Kern, Sid Munge, and Dave LaRoche.
That is wild.
So what Cade Smith's doing is unprecedented in Cleveland history, pretty much. And, he's not getting a ton of attention just because Class A is having one of the best relief seasons we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's just wild. I mean, Hunter Gaddis is like their 3rd or 4th best reliever, and his ERA is 140.
Do you still think Class A is going to finish second in the Cy Young?
Yeah, I was looking at this last night, actually, and because Lugo got hit around pretty hard by Detroit.
Yeah.
That second group of starters behind Skubal, it's like Reagans, Lugo, a couple Mariners guys, Framber Valdez.
Right.
Their numbers are all so similar. And I just think voters are going to say, how can I put Class A 4th between Lugo, Reagans, and Valdez and Kirby?
Yeah, it's almost like you got to vote for him second or not at all.
Right. He's either better than all those guys or he's not.
Right. And there will be some guys that vote him first because he's had such a dominant season. I ultimately think Skubal will win, and I don't think it's going to be that close because he's been dominant. And I don't know how much it factors in, probably for some voters. The fact that the Tigers have gotten into this race, led by their pitching, and he's their ace.
Yeah, because some people will be like, how are the Tigers doing this? And they'll go look, and they'll say, oh, Skubal. Yeah. That's a big reason.
Right. And he's just head and shoulders above any other starter right now.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I can't say anything bad about Class A. Ultimately, it's harder to be a great starter than a great closer. It just is. You're pitching way more innings. So anyway, let's see what the fans have to say. Doug, Baltimore, Houston, KC, Minnesota. Who scares you the most in a 5-game set? I feel like we get all these questions. They left out the Yankees. I don't know if he purposely left out because they're not going to play the Yankees in the first round. That's what he's assuming, or in the second round, I guess. Who scares you the most? I gotta say, I think it's Kansas City.
Wow.
None of them scare me. Let me make it clear.
Yeah.
I'm not scared by any of them. I think they could beat them all. I think now I'm second guessing. Minnesota's definitely last.
Is Houston next to last?
I think yes. It's between Baltimore and KC. I think Baltimore's a better team overall, but Baltimore's rotation right now is like Burns hasn't pitched well lately. I don't know. I'm going to say that's the thing. I'm not really scared of any of them, but I would say Kansas City if I had to pick.
Maybe the Royals' inexperience helps. Just you're getting.
Does, but I mean,
Wiggins has never pitched in a big game.
Yeah, Burns has. That's true.
Yeah,
Baltimore, not for Baltimore, but
and like Lugo and Waka are veterans, and
yeah,
I don't know. I'm with you. Like I think I'd rather face the Royals in a 7-game series.
Yes, agreed.
But yeah, I still think Baltimore's probably a little scarier with the lineup.
You know what's amazing?
You could beat the Royals 3-2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know what's amazing? You look at these teams. Baltimore's closers right now is Sir Anthony Dominguez, who is kind of like a throwaway by Philadelphia. Now he's pitched pretty well for them, but he's no lights out guy. Minnesota's obviously got a good closer, but I think they're going to end up losing the division. Detroit has no great closing situation. Neither does Kansas City. Houston's got Hader, who's been good, but he's not the Hader of old. And so like these other teams' bullpens are all Yankees bullpen. They're using what's his name is their closer right now, Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
And their bullpen's been a mess. So the Guardians have a massive advantage bullpen-wise.
I would love to ask that question to the other teams. Which team are you trying to steer clear of in October?
Yeah.
And see where Cleveland would fall on that list.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, the biggest threat to the Guardians is the Yankees. And I know that they're certainly not perfect. Far from it. I just think I think all the teams are close, and Yankee Stadium's the toughest place to play. So ultimately, and they have experience. And as much as the Guardians have dominated Aaron Judge, he's still not a guy you're comfortable facing. I don't care how good you've been against him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, and that's what I mean about what they end up doing pitching wise is so dependent on a number of variables. And against the Yankees, I mean, if you have to lean on maybe even Boyd, like Lively or Cobb or whoever, I don't know if you want those guys having to go through Soto and Judge more than once.
I think what's going to be fascinating.
Or do you like? I don't think they would do this, but I almost wonder if it makes more sense to use an opener.
Yes, I was just going to say that, Zach, because with those three guys, I would consider using an opener to get through Judge and Soto the first time. And then
you want your best pitchers facing those two guys every time you can.
Right.
And in theoretically, it could make more sense to use, not that you would use Cade Smith in the first inning, but if you used Cade Smith in the first inning to get through those guys, and then you could go Ben Lively against the bottom 6 in their order for 2 innings, and then go to someone else you trust, and then go to someone you maybe trust a little less. Like it's hard to map that out,
right,
and have it go according to plan. And it's
I would even consider like letting Ben Lively, if he's pitching well, face those guys once in the 3rd or 4th inning, and then by the time they come up again, then they're out.
But you saw, I mean, Game 5 of the division series 2 years ago, Aaron Savali blinks 4 batters in, it's 3-0 Yankees, and that's the series.
Yeah.
So you have to. I don't know. No other team presents that sort of challenge.
No. And their rotation's pretty good. It's not, their rotation's pretty good, and there's veterans. The Yankees' biggest flaw is their bullpen, and I don't like the back end of their lineup either. I think they got some. I think the Yankees are kind of in a way like the Steelers and the Ravens. We just assume their defense is good every year with those two teams, even if, and obviously Steelers defense is off to a great start, but You always assume their defense is good. And some years it's not, but we just assume it is. I think we do the same thing with the Yankees. Everybody assumes they have a great lineup 1 through 9. They don't. Now, the combination of Soto and Judge is better than, I'll take Betts and Ohtani, but it's close. That's about it. But the bottom of their lineup is nothing special.
No. So, that's why there's a way to navigate through it, but it's tricky.
I mean, Judge could be a situation where you're intentionally walking him in weird situations that you wouldn't walk other guys. So we'll see.
But he hasn't been the same since he was in that episode of Paw Patrol.
That's
so I don't
true.
know.
It's been all downhill for him since. Let's see. Diesel, will the front office make major moves this offseason? We have to capitalize on this window with Jose, and we need to make at least one more good. We need at least one more good bat and one starting pitcher. I'm going to table that question. It's a good question, Diesel, but we're in playoff mode right now. Zachary and I will be doing the show in the offseason. We will tackle this question a lot after the season is over. Daniel, of course, we get this once a week. Bring Trevor back. That's not going to happen. Tyler says, if Straw were to make the postseason roster, you'd have a bench with 2 non-factors offensively. This is the second person I've heard mention Straw.
Well, the team has mentioned him.
Okay.
They've had conversations about whether it makes sense. And I know, first of all, don't you have a Straw jersey? What was that?
I don't think I actually got the Straw jersey.
Okay.
Well, I know I didn't. Or maybe I did. I think I did and I gave it away or something.
You just know that if they put him on the playoff roster as a defensive replacement pinch runner in center field, don't you just know that he's going to be the guy at the plate?
Oh yeah,
with 2 outs in the 9th, needing a hit.
Well, and that's the point. That's why, I understand why you might want Straw on a postseason roster because he's excellent on defense and he's excellent on the bases. The problem is they already have Hedges, so now you have 2 bench players who can't hit. Who are the 2 arguably, I don't even know if it's arguably, 2 of the worst hitters in baseball. And to have 2 guys like that on the bench is a major risk.
The only way I think you could do it is if you carry 1 fewer pitcher.
Which they could do, especially in a shorter series.
But I still don't. Because you have to then be willing to, if somehow he gets up to the plate, you have to be able to pinch hit for him. I mean, he's not that's what was interesting is we asked Chris Antonetti about him a few weeks ago, and Antonetti was harsh, saying he's still working on the offensive things that we've been asking him to work on for over a year.
Yeah.
But Stephen Vogt admitted they've had conversations about whether he can help them here.
Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, running him out there for the last couple of innings to play center field is a positive, no doubt. George says, with the Valera news, who's our next outfield prospect? Well, first of all, we got to talk about this is a patella injury, very serious. This guy is we've been talking about calling him up. He's going to be out a long time now. It's unfortunate. That's a bummer for him and for the organization.
I don't know where this goes. He's going to be out 6 to 9 months, and it's a ruptured patella. So I don't know. Is next season a lost season for him? He's going to be out of options unless they can get an injury exemption. I don't know if that's likely or not, but it's tough. He's got to occupy a 40-man spot all off season, before you can put him back on the 60-day injured list next spring. So it's tough to see where his career goes, especially in Cleveland.
Yeah.
The next outfield prospect is DeLauder.
Yeah. Who's hurt too right now. Is he back yet?
Yeah, they're hoping he can maybe make it back. I think Antonetti said something like, this was in Chicago last week. He's on the path back, but they weren't sure if it would be in time to get in games.
Okay. Double K Creative gives us a super chat and says, good morning, Bull and Zach. You guys are the best for breaking down the guards. Thank you for your insight. Thank you, Double K. We appreciate that. Offline Vortex says the Tigers will overcome the Twins. George says those young guys in Baltimore could go off anytime. That's true. Mike says, as long as you make the playoffs, it's October baseball. Any team can win. Doesn't matter what their record is. that's the great thing about baseball. Not every year. There have been some times, but for the most part in baseball, most if not all the teams you feel like have a legitimate chance to win. I do remember was it I can't remember now exactly which year during that run, but there was one year in the late 90s where the Yankees played the Padres in the World Series, and I said the Padres can't win this series. There's
98.
Yeah, 98.
That was the year they won 114 games, and I think
Yeah.
they lost like one in the postseason.
Yeah,
or two. They lost two in the postseason. Both were to Cleveland in the ALCS.
Right. And I was like, yeah, they had been challenged by. That was the only team they got challenged by. And once they got, I was rooting. This was way before I was in Cleveland, obviously, but I always hated the Yankees, so I wanted Cleveland to win.
I mean, it is wild. Like, it's not surprising just because of who the Yankees are and how the playoffs work. But it feels like every single time Cleveland is in the playoffs, I guess except for 16, they've got to go through the Yankees to get where they want to go.
That's true. Diesel, we're making too big a deal about Manzardo. It's 2024. Young players hit go-ahead homers all the time. Just feels like this never happens in Cleveland because our offense is built for 1924. I don't know. I think it's a little unfair. I think it's still a big moment.
Yeah, it was a cool moment. I mean, like, you saw that you saw his reaction. Like, that's maybe the best moment of Kyle Manzardo's life.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big moment. You were losing the game in the 8th inning. I mean, David says, hey, Bull Zach, what's up with Bazana? Is he getting a call up? No. He's not coming up to the majors.
Captains are in the playoffs, though. They have a game tonight in Lake County.
Will they win their championship?
What did they do the other night? I should probably know this.
No idea. Did you see that? Speaking of which, did you see that player in the Twins organization who got cut? Because he probably just didn't. A lot of I know fans don't want to hear this, and maybe you don't care because it's the minor leagues. There's a lot of players in the minor leagues who do not want to go to the minor league playoffs because they want to just go home for the year.
Yeah, but you're affecting your teammates.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not
lives.
Defending the guy. The guy's a clown. That's disgraceful. I'm not defending him in any way. I'm just telling you, like, when I was covering games in A-ball for Batavia, we made the playoff. There was my first season there. We won 11 games in a row at the end of the season to make the playoffs. And there were a couple of guys who were like, shit, I want to go home, which I think is such a loser mentality. But I bet you that's not uncommon in the minors. Not surprisingly, the guys who said that did not ever make it to the majors.
I know some baseball writers who are annoyed when their team makes the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. That I could definitely see.
Not me.
Finally, Ryan says, does Joey Cantillo make the playoff roster?
Probably in some capacity, but I wrote a little bit about this morning on The Athletic, and I didn't include. I talked a little bit about the rotation, a little bit about the bullpen. I didn't include him in either because I don't know where he fits. I don't think he'll make a playoff start for them.
I doubt it.
But yeah, I think there could be a spot in the bullpen as a second lefty.
Depends too, Zach. It's too great that nobody in the rotation's been great. It feels silly to say he could be in the rotation. I'm with you. But there's been so much upheaval in that rotation. He's made 2 great starts. What if he makes another? What has he got? 3 more starts for the end of the season? 2? What if he continues to be great in these final few starts? And they're like,
that could change things.
Our 4th starter. I don't know if Cobb is not back or, I don't know. You're probably right. And it's just such a small sample size. But give him credit. He's been fantastic his last 2 starts. Not that you weren't giving him credit, but
yeah, I don't know what the best role is for him. And
I
again, like I always think back, because what would he start? Game 4?
Right.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Game 4 at Camden Yards, you handing him the baseball to face that lineup?
Right.
Like I
don't see it.
I don't know. But does he fit as like a guy who could go 2 innings out of the pen in a spot where he's facing a few lefties? Like,
yeah,
that could make sense. I don't know. They have a lot of guys like Andrew Walters, electric stuff, 2nd round pick last summer, flew through the system. Does he have enough time to find himself pitching in a high leverage situation in the playoffs? Like he's got the stuff. He just doesn't have any experience. Like Eric Sabrowski has come up and thrown like 10 scoreless innings. Does he have a role here? Like there's still a lot to figure out.
I mean, I still think they're going to use the guys they've been using at the end of games, and they're going to have, obviously they're going to be expanded to pitch more than one inning each. But yeah, I mean, could he use one of those guys in a big spot when the starter gets in trouble in the fourth inning and it's second and third, 2 outs? Yeah, he might. Or he might bring in Hunter Gaddis in that situation to get out of the fourth and the fifth, and maybe he's pitching one of those guys in the sixth inning for an inning.
Yeah.
So, listen, that's the good thing. The Guardians have had not a lot of options in terms of the rotation and not a lot of good options in terms of the back of the lineup. But in that bullpen, there is more than enough good options. And that doesn't include, obviously we mentioned McKenzie earlier briefly. And, but I think there's a lot of good arms. And, I mean, they're going to have 9, maybe even 10, relief pitchers, depending on if they're going to go to 3 or 4 starters. And, I guess if one of them's Joey Cantillo or Ben Lively, then, that guy's like a starter / maybe reliever. Who knows? But
it's going to look like 2016 all over again.
Could be. Maybe we get 2 starting pitchers pitching well and more, and 3 or 4 relievers. Tyler says, is David Fry catching again this year, or is it completely off the table?
If he hasn't done it yet,
I
don't see it.
And finally, Yoshidoche says, if Skubal gets beaten up once, Clase may sneak out a win. It's still possible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold your breath for Tarek Skubal getting beat up, but you never know. Has he been beat up once this year? Has he had any terrible starts?
He's been really consistent. I think he's going. Is he going tonight or tomorrow?
He's pitching tomorrow at Kansas City. His next scheduled start is against Tampa on a week from today. And if they need him, he'll get a final start against the White Sox. So
I like his odds then.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I don't know, if they somehow clinch a playoff spot before that final weekend, unlikely, he probably wouldn't pitch that weekend. But I'm bringing up his game log here for a second. Here's the earned runs he's given up per start: 0, 4, 0, 2, 0, 1, 2, 2, 0, 4, 0, 1, 1, 4, 4, 0, 3, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 5, 2, 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1. So he's only given up more than 4. He's never really gotten destroyed in any game this year. His worst start since July was against the Royals on August 2nd. He gave up 5 earned runs and 6 1/3. And then he had a start against the Braves where he got knocked out after 4, giving up 4 runs. And that's it. I mean, the guy's had, like 5 or 6 not great starts, and everything else has been lights out. And he hasn't had that single start where he's, 2 innings, 9 runs or whatever that we see even the best pitchers get once in a while. Let's see. Jim says, Mariano Rivera never won a Cy Young. Can't see it happening for Clase.
Yeah, but that's not how.
It's not how it works.
Dennis Eckersley won MVP.
Right. It's. I mean, Guillermo Hernandez won a Cy Young. What year was that? I can't remember. Or did he win the MVP? Now I'm confusing myself. It was a while ago, and I got to look it up.
I mean, Zach Britton's 2016 season was one of, if not the best season a reliever's ever had. Yeah, and he finished 4th, and Rick Porcello won it. And
right,
if a reliever's not going to win it that year, it's
and both he and Gagne when Gagne won, had like insane strikeout numbers. So Willie Hernandez, who at one point changed his name to Guillermo Hernandez, was a relief pitcher for many years. He pitched for the Cubs from 77 to 83, then was in Philadelphia in 83, right? So he'd been in the big leagues for 7 years. In 1984, with the Tigers, a Tigers team that won the World Series. He won the Cy Young and the MVP as a relief pitcher. He had a 1.92 ERA, an 0.94 WHIP. He had 112 strikeouts, but he pitched 140 innings.
I mean, voting changes over time.
Weird,
It's all context dependent based on the rest of the field too. And we talked about this. I wrote about this in depth like a month ago, but there have been seasons like we talked about. Trevor Hoffman had 2 seasons, one where he was incredible and one where he was like solid and finished second both times, and it didn't really make sense. But it depends on who the other candidates are,
right?
And it depends on what you're looking for. I think like guys don't throw 250 innings anymore, so I think that has changed things too. But I mean, it's all a moot point. I think I would guess Clase finishes second, but I mean, he also may finish fifth. I have no idea. Relievers have not fared well in the voting in a long time. No
and
one's finished top 3, I think, in like 16 years.
The guys who vote, that are the younger writers who are heavier on analytics, they're not voting a reliever, especially. But anyway, last question. George says, is Sandlin the new Eric Plunk? What say you?
I can see that, yeah. And that he's going to be interesting because you want to talk about that bullpen circle of trust. Like, he's the guy that I think maybe vote trusts more than the fans wish he did.
Yeah.
And so he's going to wind up on the mound in a critical situation against Aaron Judge at some point, and Godspeed. All
right, Zach, our 33-minute show went 52 minutes, so I think it's time to wrap up.
How long are these going to go in the playoffs? Like 4 hours? I mean,
we may.
The comments won't end.
I got to get us some extra pay here for this. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate all the comments. We appreciate all the views. It was one of the highest live view totals we've had for the show. We'll be back on Friday, and then Tuesday and Friday next week. And then once we get to the playoffs, we may alter the schedule. We shall see. But throughout the postseason and into the offseason, which hopefully won't come till November, we'll be with you twice a week. We'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.